The morning sun rose slowly over the busy city, touching the roads with a pale golden light. Cars were already honking. People were rushing to work. Shops were opening one by one. But in the middle of all that noise, a small boy walked quietly with a tray of groundnuts balanced on his head. His name was Ethan. He was only 13, but life had already pressed him hard, like hands squeezing wet cloth. His slippers were worn. His shirt was faded. His steps were slow, not because he was weak, but because he had learned to conserve his energy. Every step mattered. Every coin mattered. At home, his mother lay on a thin mattress, fighting an illness that refused to leave. Some days she could sit up. Some days she could not even whisper his name. Ethan carried her image everywhere he went. He carried her pain like a small stone inside his pocket. It was always with him. That morning, as he walked along the busy road, he whispered softly, "Mama, I will sell everything today. I will buy your medicine. I promise." Cars rushed past him. Some people ignored him. Some frowned. Some waved him away without looking. But Ethan kept walking. He was used to being invisible. The city did not slow down for a boy like him. It did not bend for his story or his tears. He stopped at a junction where the traffic light turned red. He quietly called out, "Groundnuts, sweet groundnuts, please buy." Most drivers rolled up their windows. Some pretended not to hear him. A few shook their heads. Ethan swallowed the disappointment. He had learned that rejection was not personal. People had their own troubles. People had their own storms. But he kept walking from car to car, offering his small tray with both hands. His voice grew softer, not because he was tired, but because he could already feel the weight of the day. He had been awake since dawn. He had not eaten breakfast. But hunger did not scare him. His mother's sickness did. At the far end of the road, a large black SUV stopped at the light. The glass was tinted. The car looked expensive, like something only very rich people owned. Ethan was afraid to walk close. People in such cars usually shouted. Some insulted him. Some accused him of scratching their cars. But the light stayed red. The car did not move. Something inside him whispered, "Try." He moved closer, slow and careful. His voice trembled a little. "Groundnuts, sir, sweet groundnuts." For a moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, the tinted window rolled down. A man sat inside. His hair was gray at the sides. His face was calm but carried the weight of many years. He wore a simple shirt, but everything about him looked neat and important. His eyes, however, were kind in a way that made Ethan lower his gaze. "Good morning," the man said gently. Ethan swallowed. "Good morning, sir." "What is your name?" the man asked. "Ethan, sir." The man nodded softly, as if he had been waiting to hear that name for a long time. "How much is one?" he asked. Ethan told him. The man did not reach for one. Instead, he reached for his wallet and asked, "Do you have a mother?" Ethan froze. His heart paused like a stop drum. He nodded slowly. "Is she all right?" the man asked. And before Ethan could stop it, the truth slipped out like a sigh. "No, so she is very sick." The man looked at him with quiet sadness. The light turned green, but the car did not move. The green light stayed bright above the road, but the black SUV did not move. Drivers behind began honking, impatient with the delay. Yet the man inside the car did not panic. He simply raised one hand calmly, signaling them to go around. Ethan stood there quietly, his tray shaking a little in his hands. He did not understand why the man was giving him so much attention. Most people chased him away before he even spoke. But this man, he was studying him gently, as if trying to read his heart. "What is wrong with your mother?" the man asked in a soft voice. Ethan breathed in slowly, trying to steady himself. She cannot stand for long. She coughs a lot. Sometimes she cannot breathe well. The man listened without interrupting. His eyes did not look away. They did not blink hurriedly like others who only asked out of pity. His eyes were steady, carrying something deeper, something like worry mixed with longing. "How long has she been sick?" he asked. Ethan looked down. "A long time, sir. She tries to hide the pain, but I see it." A quiet wind passed through the street. People kept walking. Cars kept moving. The world remained busy. But around the boy and the stranger, it felt like a small circle of silence had formed, a pocket of stillness separating them from the noise. The man finally asked, "Do you go to school?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I stopped. Mama said she does not want me to suffer in future, but it became worse. So I started selling groundnuts." The man's jaw tightened a little, not with anger, but with a quiet ache. "And your father?" he asked softly. Ethan's chest tightened. A small shadow crossed his face. He shook his head again. "I don't know him, sir. Mama never talks about him." The man exhaled deeply, as though the answer hit him somewhere he had not prepared for. For a moment, he looked away at the steering wheel, his thumb tapping it slowly, thoughtfully. Something in Ethan's words had reached a tender place inside him. When he looked back, his expression was even softer. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Ethan wanted to say no. He always tried to hide his hunger. He did not like pity. But his lips trembled slightly, and the truth slipped out in a small whisper. "Yes, sir, a little." The man nodded. "Come closer." Ethan stepped nearer to the car. The man brought out some money, not too much, not too little, just enough to frighten a boy who had never held such an amount before. Ethan's eyes widened. "Sir, I don't have change," he said quickly, worried he would lose the sale. The man gave a small smile. "It's not for groundnuts, Ethan." Ethan froze again. "Take it," the man said gently. "Buy food for yourself, and buy something small for your mother." Ethan's throat tightened. His eyes burned. He blinked fast, trying to hide the tears forming. Boys who sell on the streets are used to swallowing tears. Crying makes people insult you. Crying makes people think you're begging. But this time he could not push the tears back. "Sir, thank you," he whispered shakily. "It's all right," the man replied softly. A brief silence followed. Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He did not want the man to think he was weak. "Can you describe your mother for me?" the man asked suddenly. Ethan looked surprised. "Describe her?" "Yes," the man said. "Tell me what she looks like." Ethan swallowed. "She is beautiful, sir. Even when she is sick, she is still beautiful. Her hair is short. Her smile, it makes me feel safe." The man breathed out slowly, deeply, almost too deeply. And for the first time, Ethan saw something in the man's eyes. Something heavy. Something lonely. Something like grief. The man whispered almost to himself, "A short-haired woman with a soft smile." His voice faded. He looked away again, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. Something inside him was waking up. Something he had buried for years. Something connected to Ethan. Something connected to a past he wasn't ready to face. The light changed again. The cars around them kept moving in restless circles, but inside that small space between the boy and the man, time seemed to soften. Ethan stood quietly, holding his tray with both hands, his eyes still a little wet. The man watched him with a strange kind of attention, not the shallow curiosity of a stranger, but a deep, searching look, as if every word Ethan said touched a hidden place in his heart. "What is your mother's name?" the man asked gently. Ethan looked down at his dusty slippers before answering. "Her name is Lily. Lily Adams." The man's breath caught, not loudly, not in a dramatic way, but in a small, sharp silence. His fingers stopped moving. His chest tightened. For a moment, he could not speak. Ethan did not notice. He thought maybe he had spoken too quietly. "Sir, did you hear me? Her name is Lily." The man closed his eyes briefly, as though steadying himself. When he opened them, they looked different, softer, but also full of something heavy. Memories, maybe. Regret. Hope. Fear. Everything mixing at once. "Yes," he whispered quietly. "I heard you." The noise of the city faded again. The honking cars sounded far away. Even the wind seemed to wait. "How long have you and your mother lived in the city?" the man asked, his voice lower, slower. "Since I was small," Ethan replied. "Mama said she wanted a quiet life. She does not talk about the past. Whenever I ask, she just smiles and says, 'Some stories bring pain, my son.' So I stopped asking." The man nodded slowly. Pain flickered across his eyes like the shadow of a passing bird. "Do you look like her?" he asked. Ethan shook his head gently. "People say I look like my father, but I don't know him, sir. Mama said his name is not important." The man looked away. He stared through the front glass, not at the road, but at something distant in his mind, something that clearly hurt to remember. Ethan waited quietly. He didn't know what else to say. He always felt small near rich people, but with this man he felt something different, not fear, not shame, just a strange warmth, as if this man's presence carried a soft blanket he didn't know he needed. When the man finally spoke again, his voice was gentle but heavy. "Ethan, may I ask you something difficult?" Ethan tightened his grip on his tray. "Yes, sir." "Your mother, does she ever talk about someone she once loved? Someone she lost?" Ethan blinked. He didn't understand why the man's voice broke slightly at the word lost. He nodded slowly. "Sometimes at night, when she thinks I'm asleep, she cries quietly. She whispers a name. I don't hear it well. It sounds like Michael." The man's lips parted. His eyes softened completely. His shoulders dropped, as if something inside him had finally burst open. He whispered, barely audible, "Michael." Ethan frowned gently. "Sir, are you all right?" The man swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "I'm fine, Ethan. I just remembered something." But the truth was bigger than memory. The truth was hitting him like a wave he had run from for years. He turned to Ethan fully now, studying him from face to neck, from eyes to nose, from the way he stood to the way he spoke. "You said people say you look like your father," he said softly. "Yes, sir." "And your mother never remarried?" "No, sir." "And she raised you alone?" "Yes." "And you are 13? "Yes, sir." The man nodded several times, each nod slower than the last, as though pieces of a forgotten story were falling into place. Then he whispered the question he had been afraid to ask. "Ethan, how old was your mother when she had you?" Ethan thought for a moment. "She said she was young, very young, when she got pregnant." The man closed his eyes again. A single tear escaped. He wiped it quickly, turning his face slightly away so Ethan would not see. But Ethan saw. He saw the tear. He saw the pain. He saw the truth waking up slowly. The man did not start the car immediately. He placed both hands on the steering wheel and breathed in slowly, as if gathering strength he had not used in years. The road was noisy, but inside the car there was a strange calmness, the kind that comes before a truth no one is ready to face. Ethan stood beside the window, unsure of what to do. His tray felt heavier. His heart felt slower. "Sir, should I go?" he asked softly, afraid he was disturbing the man's peace. The man shook his head gently. "No, Ethan. Please wait." There was something in his voice, something tired, something wounded, something that had traveled too many years alone. Ethan sensed it, but did not understand it fully. The man finally looked at him again, eyes soft, voice low. "Ethan, can I take you somewhere? Just for a short time. I want you to eat something. Your hands are shaking." Ethan looked at his hands. He had not noticed how weak they were. His stomach had been empty since the previous night. But he hesitated. "Mama's alone at home," he whispered. "She waits for me." The man nodded carefully, respectfully. "We will not stay long. I promise. I will take you back myself." Something about the man's tone felt safe, not in the loud, proud way rich people sometimes speak, but in a quiet, gentle way that made Ethan's shoulders relax. Still, Ethan asked the question he always asked strangers, "Sir, you won't shout at me?" The man's eyes softened deeply. "No, Ethan. I could never shout at you." Something in the way he said never felt unusual, almost personal, like the promise was heavier than Ethan understood. Slowly, Ethan opened the car door and sat carefully beside him. The seat felt soft, too soft for someone like him who was used to wooden stools and floors. His body did not know how to rest on something that comfortable. The man adjusted the AC, but not too cold. He glanced at Ethan, making sure he was all right. "Is this okay?" he asked. Ethan nodded shyly. "Yes, sir. Thank you." The car began to move slowly through the city. Ethan watched the buildings pass by, his eyes wide with quiet wonder. He had never been inside a big car before. He had only seen them from afar, shiny, powerful, with tinted windows that hid rich faces. Now he was sitting inside one. The man did not drive fast. He drove as though every movement required thought. Every turn carried weight. For a long moment, they said nothing. The silence was not empty. It was full of questions they were not ready to ask, full of memories the man was afraid to touch. Finally, the man spoke. Ethan, do you know why your mother left her hometown? Ethan shook his head. She said some memories hurt. She said running was easier. The man closed his eyes briefly. Pain moved across his face like a slow shadow. Your mother was right, he whispered. Some memories hurt more than wounds. Ethan watched him carefully. Sir, did you know her? The man's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He did not answer immediately. He breathed out slowly, as though opening a door he had kept locked for many years. Yes, he said softly. I knew her. Ethan blinked. You did. The man nodded once. A small, sad smile touched his lips. I knew her when we were both young. She was the kindest person I ever met. Ethan stared at him. His heart skipped a beat. Sir, what was she like back then? The man looked out of the window, as if searching for her face in the passing buildings. She had a quiet laughter, he said softly. She didn't like trouble. She loved small things, flowers, early morning air, quiet places. And she was strong, stronger than anyone knew. Ethan swallowed. Mama still smiles like that. The man's voice grew even softer. Yes, I believe she does. There was a long pause, a deep one. Then Ethan asked the question that gently shook the man's heart. Sir, were you close to her? The man's grip loosened in defeat. His voice broke. Yes, he whispered. Too close. Ethan watched him, confused but calm. He did not understand yet, but he felt something big moving in the air, something like a truth on its way. The man blinked fast, trying to hide the wetness in his eyes. Ethan, your mother did not leave because she wanted to, he whispered. She left to protect something precious. What thing? Ethan asked quietly. The man looked at him deeply, painfully. You, he said. And the car grew even quieter. The car rolled into a small, clean restaurant at the corner of a quiet street. It wasn't noisy like the big places in the city. It wasn't crowded. The chairs were simple. The walls were neat. The air smelled of warm bread and calm mornings. The man chose this place on purpose, a place where truth could breathe without strangers watching. He turned off the engine and looked at Ethan gently. Let's eat something first, he said. Talking on an empty stomach will only make things harder. Ethan nodded and stepped out slowly. His legs felt weak, not from hunger alone, but from the weight of the man's last words. She left to protect something precious. You. The words kept circling in his mind, like a small bird that wouldn't fly away. They sat at a small table beside the window. A young waitress came over, smiling politely. Good afternoon, sir. What would you like to eat? The man didn't look at the menu. His eyes stayed on Ethan. What do you like? He asked softly. Ethan shook his head. Anything, sir, anything is fine. The man nodded. Please bring rice, chicken, and 2 bottles of water. The waitress left them. Silence settled gently between them. Not uncomfortable, not heavy, just waiting. Ethan looked down at his hands resting on his lap. Sir, he began, his voice shaky. You said Mama left to protect me. Protect me from what? The man breathed out slowly, deeply, the kind of breath someone takes when carrying a memory that burns. Ethan, he said, your mother ran away because she was afraid. She was afraid of losing you before you were even born. Ethan's head lifted. His eyes widened softly. Losing me? Why? The man looked down at the table, his fingers tracing the edge slowly. Because the people around her back then, some of them wished her harm. Some didn't want her to have you. Ethan frowned gently, his small eyebrows squeezing together. But why? Mama is peaceful. She doesn't trouble anyone. The man closed his eyes for a moment, fighting the sting behind them. Your mother was loved by someone who was not supposed to love her. And because of that, she suffered. Ethan whispered, who loved her? The man looked at him, then really looked at him, the way a man looks at something familiar yet far away. I did, he answered quietly. Ethan froze. His fingers tightened around the seat. The man continued, his voice breaking carefully, like glass touching stone. Your mother and I, we were young. We loved each other. But the people around me, my family, my workers, even my friends, they did not accept her. They said she was too poor. They said she was not good enough for me. Ethan's chest rose and fell slowly, deeply. The man swallowed. When she became pregnant, she hid it. She didn't want anyone to hurt her. She didn't want anyone to take the child away. Ethan blinked. The child, me? The man nodded gently. Yes, Ethan. You. The food arrived, but neither of them touched it. The air inside the restaurant grew softer, heavier, like rain waiting behind clouds. Ethan whispered, Sir, are you saying you are the man my mother loved? The man nodded once, slowly, painfully. Yes. Ethan's heart pounded loudly in his chest. He could hear it in his ears. He could feel it in his throat. His hands trembled. And are you saying, Ethan's voice broke, Sir, are you saying you might be? He could not finish. The man finished it for him, his voice almost shaking. Ethan, I believe I am your father. The words didn't fall like thunder. They didn't fall like fire. They fell softly, like a leaf dropping onto quiet water. Ethan sat very still, very silent, very unsure of how to breathe. The man rested his hands on the table, palms open, as if offering everything he had left in his life. I have searched for many years, he whispered. I lost your mother, and I lost you, and every day since then has been a wound I carry. Ethan swallowed hard. The room felt too quiet, too real, too close. He whispered only one word. Why? The man blinked away a tear. Because I was foolish. Because I didn't protect her. Because I let other people's voices drown my own. And I have regretted it every day. Ethan's eyes filled slowly. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just honest tears rising from years of quiet pain he never understood. He whispered, Mama cried so many nights. The man covered his face with his hand for a moment, fighting his own breaking heart. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. They sat there for a long time without touching the food. Not because they were not hungry, but because something bigger than hunger was sitting between them, something that needed space, needed silence, needed time. Ethan stared at the table, trying to understand what his ears had heard. The man watched him gently, giving him room to breathe, room to feel, room to steady his small shaking heart. Finally, the man pushed the plate closer to him. Eat, Ethan, even if it's small. Your mother will worry if you return home weak. The mention of his mother softened Ethan's eyes. He picked up the spoon slowly and took a small bite. The man ate nothing. His throat was too tight. His heart was too full. After a while, Ethan whispered, Sir, if you are truly my father, why didn't you look for us before now? The man closed his eyes for a brief moment. I did, he said softly. For years I searched, but your mother disappeared completely. She hid her tracks. She didn't want anyone to find her. Ethan frowned gently. She was afraid? The man nodded. Yes, and she was hurt. I broke her trust. I broke her heart. And she did the only thing she believed would protect her child. Ethan's chest rose slowly, then fell. He took another small bite, set the spoon down, and whispered, Mama always said the world took too much from her. The man swallowed hard. It took too much from both of you, and I should have been there. I should have carried some of that pain. Ethan looked at him, really looked at him. The man was not pretending. His eyes were too honest, too tired, too full of old regrets. Sir, Ethan said quietly, do you want to see Mama? The man's breath caught in his throat. More than anything, he whispered. But I don't want to frighten her, or hurt her. If she doesn't want to see me, I will leave. Ethan shook his head slowly, his voice small but sure. Mama doesn't hate people. She only fears pain. The man nodded gently. I understand. Ethan wiped his eyes quietly. He wasn't crying loudly. His tears came like small drops, soft, careful, almost ashamed. The man saw it and his own eyes filled again. Ethan, if I am your father, I have failed you both. But if you allow me, I want to start again. Slowly, gently, in any way you are ready. Ethan lowered his head. His voice was almost a whisper. Sir, I don't know how to feel. I'm happy but also scared. The man nodded. It's all right to feel both. After a long silence, Ethan finally whispered, I want to go home now. Mama will be waiting. The man stood up slowly. I'll drive you. They walked out of the restaurant together. Ethan held his tray. The man walked beside him, careful, protective in a quiet way. Not touching him. not rushing him, just being there. Inside the car, the drive toward their small neighborhood began. The city grew less busy, less shiny, more familiar to Ethan. Along the way, Ethan spoke first. "Sir, what is your full name?" The man glanced at him gently. "My name is Michael Turner." Ethan repeated it softly. Michael Turner. Something in the name felt familiar, like a forgotten song he had heard long ago. "Your mother used to say it with a smile," the man whispered. Ethan looked out of the window. The streets were changing now. Narrower roads, older buildings, small shops, people selling food by the roadside. The man watched the neighborhood with quiet pain. "She lived here all these years, hiding her sorrow." Ethan whispered, "She never complained. She only said God gives strength in small pieces." The man looked down. A tear escaped. "I don't deserve her forgiveness," he said quietly, "but I hope I can at least ask for it." Soon, the car reached the old wooden gate. Ethan swallowed hard. "This is where we live," he said softly. The man's heart tightened as he looked at the small compound. He could feel his pulse in his throat. "Is she inside?" he asked in a trembling voice. Ethan nodded. "Should I wait here?" the man whispered. Ethan looked at him carefully. Then slowly, shyly, bravely, he reached out and touched the man's hand. "I think you should come in." The man's breath shook. The moment he had feared, the moment he had prayed for, the moment he had waited years for, was finally here. Ethan pushed the small wooden gate open. It creaked in its usual tired voice. The compound was quiet, almost too quiet, as if it already sensed something important was about to happen. The afternoon sun rested softly on the walls. A weak breeze blew through the old mango tree at the corner. Michael stepped in slowly, his shoes touching the dusty ground with careful respect. He looked around, the cracked bucket near the door, the clothesline with a few worn dresses, the small bench where Ethan usually sat to sort groundnuts. Every detail cut into him. Each one whispered a different story of the life Lily had struggled through alone. Ethan walked ahead and paused at the entrance door. He looked back at Michael. "She might be sleeping," Ethan said quietly. Michael nodded. His throat was too tight to speak. Ethan knocked gently. "Mama, it's me." There was a rustle inside, a small cough. Then Lily's weak voice floated out. "Ethan, you're back?" "Yes, Mama." Michael felt his knees shake. The sound of her voice, older, softer, weaker, hit him in a place he had kept locked for many years. Ethan pushed the door open. Lily was sitting on the edge of the thin mattress. One hand pressed to her chest as she tried to breathe steadily. Her short hair was wrapped in a scarf. Her eyes looked tired but still gentle, the same gentle eyes Michael had loved long ago. She smiled faintly when she saw Ethan. "My son, you took long today. I was worried." Then she saw the shadow behind him. Her smile froze. Her fingers trembled. Her eyes widened slowly, painfully, as if her heart recognized something her mind refused to accept. "Lily," Michael whispered, his voice breaking like something old and wounded. Her breath caught. Her hand dropped from her chest. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Ethan stepped aside, revealing him fully. The air inside the small room seemed to stop moving. Michael removed his cap slowly, not as a sign of greeting, but as a sign of surrender. His eyes glistened. His shoulders dropped. He looked at her the way a man looks at a grave he thought he would never find. "Lily," he whispered again, softer. "It's me." Lily's body shook. A tear escaped before she could blink it away. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to hold in the cry rising inside her. Ethan rushed to her side. Mama, are you okay?" She held his hand tightly, but her eyes never left Michael. "You," she finally whispered, her voice thin like a breaking thread. Why are you here?" Michael took one slow step forward. His tears fell freely now. "Because I found him," he said. "I found our son." Lily's face crumbled. She covered her eyes. A soft, broken sob escaped her lips, not loud, not dramatic, but full of 10 years of buried hurt. 10 years of loneliness. 10 years of fear. 10 years of raising a child alone. 10 years of loving someone who never came back. Michael dropped to his knees, not in pride, not in strength, but in pure, raw regret. "Lily, I am sorry," he whispered, his voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. I am so sorry. I failed you. I failed him. I failed all of us. Lily shook her head slowly, tears running silently down her cheeks. You left me, she whispered. You left me when I needed you. They said you didn't want us. They said you hated me. I ran because I wanted to keep my child safe from your people, from their wickedness. Michael wiped his face with shaking hands. I did not hate you, Lily. I loved you. I still do. I searched for you. I searched everywhere. But you were gone. Lily cried harder, a quiet, painful sound that filled the small room. Ethan held her hand with one hand and held Michael's hand with the other. He didn't understand everything, but he understood one thing. Both of them were hurting. Deeply. Slowly. Lily lifted her eyes and looked at Michael. Really looked, she saw the old pain in his eyes. She saw the regret. She saw the love he still carried. Michael, she whispered, her voice trembling, why now? Why after all these years? Michael bowed his head. Because this time, I found the part of you I lost. His eyes moved to Ethan. Our son. Lily covered her mouth again. Her tears fell harder. But this time, they were not only tears of pain. They were tears of something else. Something like relief. Something like release. Something like the beginning of healing. Ethan looked at both of them, two broken adults who had carried him in their hearts in different ways. Slowly, gently he whispered, Mama, maybe this is the time we all heal. The room fell silent, but it was a new silence. A soft one. A hopeful one. The room stayed silent for a long time. Lily's quiet sobs slowly softened. Michael's breathing steadied. Ethan sat between them, his small hands holding both of theirs, as if he understood he was the bridge that had brought two broken hearts back into the same space. Outside, the wind moved through the mango leaves. A bird sang somewhere. Life continued gently, unaware of the storm that was calming inside the small home. Lily wiped her eyes slowly. Her voice was low, cracked, fragile. Michael, I don't know how to face all the years we lost. Michael nodded. He did not try to defend himself. He did not hide behind excuses. His voice was humble, almost broken. We can't change the years, but maybe we can change the days ahead. Lily looked at him with painful honesty. I raised him alone. I suffered alone. I cried alone. Michael bowed his head, his voice barely a whisper. And I will carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Ethan held tighter to both their hands. Mama, he's here now. Lily looked at her son, the boy she had carried through nights of hunger, through days of fear, through lonely sickness. She saw his innocence, his bravery, his gentle heart. And she realized something. Forgiveness was not for Michael alone. It was for her, for Ethan, for the life ahead. She breathed in slowly and looked at Michael again. I don't know how to start. Michael nodded, tears in his eyes. We start slowly, with truth, with patience, with kindness. I don't want to force my way back. I just want to be the father he never had and the man you needed. Lily blinked, new tears forming, but softer this time. Michael, are you sure you're ready? Michael let out a trembling breath. I have been ready for years. A small, quiet peace fell between them. Ethan stood up and went to the corner of the room. He took the old metal chair and placed it gently in front of his mother. Then, he took another one and placed it in front of Michael. Sit, he said quietly. They both obeyed. He looked at them with eyes too wise for a boy's age. I don't want two broken parents, he whispered. I want a family, even if it starts small. Lily's chest rose and fell deeply. Michael wiped his face. And then something happened that none of them planned. Lily reached out. Her fingers touched Michael's hand. Not fully, not tightly, not confidently, just enough to say, I'm not running anymore. Michael looked down at their hands and a soft sob escaped him. Not a loud one. A soft, deeply grateful one. He turned his palm slowly and held her fingers gently, as if afraid she would pull away. But she didn't. Ethan watched them, a tear slipping down his cheek. He wiped it quickly and smiled a small, shy smile. Lily looked at her son and whispered, Ethan, I did everything for you. Everything. Michael added quietly, and now, I want to do everything for both of you. The evening light entered the room softly. Shadows stretched across the walls, but the darkness did not feel heavy anymore. It felt warm, like a place where healing could grow. Michael stood up slowly. Lily, I want to take care of your treatment. I want to help you get well. I want to make sure Ethan goes back to school. And I want to rebuild what we lost if you allow me. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Her voice trembled. I am tired. Michael, tired of carrying this life alone. Michael knelt beside her. You won't carry it alone again. Not while I'm alive. Ethan moved forward, resting his head gently on his mother's shoulder and his hand on Michael's back. 3 of them. One small room. One new beginning. Lily whispered, all right, we will try. Michael closed his eyes, tears falling freely. Thank you. Lily, thank you. As the sun set outside the window, the small family stayed close, breathing the same soft air, sharing the same fragile warmth. Nothing magical happened. No sudden miracles. No perfect ending. Just 3 hearts choosing to heal. Slowly, gently, together. And sometimes, that is the most beautiful ending of all.